Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching Welcome to Plathville. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one. You deserve it. Let's get to the show.
Yeah. Since last year, a lot has happened in our relationship between me and Olivia and my parents and my siblings, just the family dynamics. Yeah, a lot has happened. It's kind of hard to say, but where do I start?
So, we didn't learn a lot about Ethan's personality in the first season, or at least I had a hard time figuring out what was going on there, and it wasn't a major focus of the season. But my hypothesis has been that Ethan his role in the family was to be the compliant kid, to be the good kid, to be the jokester, to be the conservative one, to be almost naive, because it might help his parents if he were naive, and also maybe to be the dependent one, to be the one that would defer to other people, particularly maybe his mom, maybe both of his parents, but maybe particularly his mom. I mean, the way that they frame it on this show, it looks like the mom is the one mostly in charge of the family rules. Maybe the dad is too. Sometimes they are from a distance. But anyway, it's possible, and again, I'm just completely speculating, and I really want to always emphasize that when I treated families, I had weeks, months, years to assess them, and there's just no way I can really tell by watching a TV show that's edited. But with Ethan, one hypothesis that I would pursue if this family were to work with me is that Ethan was dependent, and it served the family well that he was like that, meaning that he doesn't really know who he is, has a hard time with assertiveness. When in doubt, he makes a joke and complies and is pleasant and suppresses his own needs. And some people can live their whole lives like this, where everyone around them is like, oh, he's so pleasant, or she never gets angry, or he's always so nice, or she just, she's just easygoing. It just, nothing phases her. Now, for some people that's true, but for some people it isn't true. They come across that way very convincingly, but underneath it all is pain and longing for knowing who they are and wanting other people to care about who they are and to take the time to ask. So one piece of evidence we see along those lines for Ethan right now is the producers are asking him, okay, what's going on with your parents? And presumably Ethan is going to say, oh, a lot's happened. In fact, I basically cut off my parents and I said, I reject you and I never want to talk to you again. Something along those lines. But he has a hard time saying that to the camera, presumably because he knows the parents are going to see, or I don't know, maybe has some shame around it or some uncertainty around it. And so he's like, and he doesn't know what to say. And then he turns to Olivia and says, where do I start? And as a family therapist, couples therapist, I would see this a lot, where couples would sit on my couch and one person would have a really hard time getting a session going, and the other person would be very good at it. Now, I'm not going to pathologize it per se, but it does present some data to point out a certain personality of deferral to other people. There's also a possibility, as I've been speculating, and maybe we'll find out, that Ethan wasn't necessarily wanting to cut off his parents, that he is deferring to his parents when he's young, and he's now deferring to Olivia. And since Olivia wanted to cut off the parents, Ethan went along with it and might completely be on board with it on the surface, but deep down he doesn't even know really what he wants. Who knows? Maybe we'll find out differently. Let's continue to watch.
During last year, we were allowed to see the kids some, and then last fall, everything just completely changed. We were not allowed to see the kids at all. It was just toxic.
It really does hurt not being able to see them. That's really hard. It's very, very frustrating. I have a lot of frustration that I am trying to deal with. Like, why am I not allowed to see my siblings unsupervised?
Yeah, it's just so many weird things happening. And the parents, I think, will say, well, we will let Ethan and Olivia hang out with the siblings for sure, but we just want to make sure that we're there. What's the problem with that? Why can't we be there when you're here with the kids? I don't understand the problem. But from Olivia's point of view, I'm guessing she's like, why do you always have to police everything? Why do you have to control everything? And again, if we could go back in time, if a family therapist were there with Olivia and Kim and really had, 5 to 10 sessions of really the two of them talking and trying to see eye to eye, trying to understand where the other person is coming from, learning how to communicate in an effective way, then I'm guessing this all would have not happened. And I've seen this before where there's a little bit of a crack, and then because you continue to hurt each other and react, the crack gets bigger and bigger, and before long, you have this vast chasm where people on both sides are like, that other person is evil, and both people believe it. And everyone in their camp is convinced that the other camp is evil. It kind of looks that way to me because I don't see anything wrong with Olivia. I don't see anything wrong with Kim, really. And so it's just a tragedy of prolonged, distant, and bad communication as far as I can tell. I don't know, though.
You have to admit, it is running really good. It's like the best it's ever run. I know it needs a lot more work, but we're still moving. We're still going forward. Isn't this so relaxing? It's like therapeutic. It's like you have no more troubles anymore.
This has nothing to do with psychology, or maybe it does. But as someone that grew up in Seattle, you wouldn't see very many convertible cars because it's raining or cloudy or cold. And so when I went to Hawaii not that long ago, I decided to get rent a convertible car. And I thought how great it would be to be in, balmy Hawaii and have a convertible, drive with the top down. Then I start taking the car out and I'm realizing that there's all this wind and the sun is beating down on you. And I'm trying to enjoy it. And I'm like, oh, yay, isn't this great? And then when you stop, your hair is just completely discombobulated and all sort of matted up. And you got like dust hitting you in the face and stuff. And I kept at it for a couple of days. I'm like, yes, convertible, this is fantastic. And then after a while, I just put the top up and turned on the AC, and it just was so much better. So for Olivia right now, she's like, yeah, this is so relaxing to have wind blasting me in my face. So anyway, I can relate to Olivia's pain in this moment.
Just the stuff between my parents and me and Olivia, basically what my dad told me in his own words was that they could not accept her. That strain, it got to the point where it was either separation or divorce. And that's one thing that I do really regret, is that I tried to keep the peace when I should have said, don't treat my wife like this, don't talk to my wife like this.
Interesting. So the dad said, we do not accept her. Sounded like they were saying to Ethan, you need to divorce her. And it sounds like Ethan at first was going along with that. And now he has switched to Olivia loyalty, and he's looking back and regretting that he was entertaining the idea of divorce at the pressure of his dad, which kind of points in the direction of that dependency part, or lack of connection with who you are and what you want, or an ongoing pattern of feeling like you're really just trying to please everyone instead of thinking, what do I want?
Divorce was definitely on the table for a couple of months, and it was a really hard couple of months.
Okay, so that's interesting. What that tells me is that, or I guess what it might tell me, because I don't know, is that Ethan was really trying to pressure Olivia to change. And Olivia was not wanting to change. And Ethan was saying, look, if you don't change, we're going to have to divorce. And so that would be my guess as to what was happening, which, again, it just breaks my heart to think about what I believe to be good people just having a mild difference of opinion that just grows and grows and grows. It happens all the time. It happens politically, and then all sorts of tragedies can happen from that too.
And just got to the point of like, if this is gonna work, we're gonna have to fight really hard for this and cut out everything that doesn't want us to make it. We're not all better, we're not perfect, we're not there, but we're working on it. We're spending more time together.
All right, so they're talking about how their relationship is still not optimal or not the way it used to be, or there's still some hurt feelings there, which is interesting. Now, as I will frequently talk about, that family health often doesn't have to do with the decisions that a family makes specifically, and has much more to do with how flexible it is to what the system needs and to individual needs. How flexible is a family to new information? This is a fundamental family systems therapist idea, that as systems change over time, because they do, you have to be able to adjust. It's similar in any other system. Say you have an ecological system and you have rising temperatures. That's a new change in the system. We could say that that's similar to a family having adolescence in their family. That's a new thing, to have older teenagers in your family that are a little bit more freedom oriented. That's a new element. Well, in an ecological system, we have rising temperatures. And the system needs to be able to adjust to that. And if it can't adjust to that, it'll become chaos and the whole thing will fall apart. Ecological systems might completely break down because it can't adjust quick enough to the temperature change. The Earth has gone through various different temperature changes over time. Of course, it was much more gradual than it is today, but it's done it. And the system of the ecology of life on our planet has adjusted ever so slowly to the changing average temperatures of the planet over time. And when you can incorporate new information and adjust and be flexible, and there are certain elements of the system that allow for that change to happen, then your system will persevere. And so in a family system, as you had the teenagers start to express themselves, you have to be able to adjust to that. And how do you adjust to that? Well, you have to rethink things. You have to create new systems, new rules, but they have to come from you, and they have to be listening to other people, and you have to come to an agreement together. And this family did not do that. They were not able to do that. And we see the result of that, where you have Ethan and Olivia on one side with, I guess, Micah and Mariah, and everyone else on the other side. And they don't even talk to each other anymore. And it's just a huge tragedy when, if they were flexible, if they were able to flex. And I'm going to put Olivia in that inflexibility too, because in season 1, she seemed also inflexible. You know, it's tempting to look at Kim and say she's the problem. She's the one who was inflexible. But we could also say the dad was a part of that. We could say Lydia was, I guess, a part of that, even though she's a child and probably not fully aware of what's happening. But we would look at Olivia as someone else. You know, everyone, Mariah was part of it. You know, everyone participated. Now, you would say that Kim might be the person in most control, and as a family therapist, she would be the person that I would really be having the most conversations with. But all people in the system contributed to the inflexibility and the inability to adjust, which is, like I've been saying, it's just really tragic.
We're staying away from that drama.
I made it.
And I think as we heal as people, our marriage will, begin to heal and thrive.
Now, the other thing I'll say, and maybe some of y'all are wondering this, is there's also sometimes it's wise to cut yourself off from your family. Maybe they're just too hurtful. Maybe there's just too much drama, as Olivia is putting it. So I'm not going to say that it's always the right thing to do to be flexible and to negotiate and to compromise. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when we are making these decisions, and particularly when we're going to family therapy, that we consider the flexibility dimension as part of what we might change in order for everyone to get their needs met. If you want to comment below, that'd be great. I read a lot of the comments, and I even do an episode in which I react to your comments. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.